Charlotte and Jonathan, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Very well. Thank you for asking. Thanks for having us.
Great to have you on here. I want to jump in with a big one. We just heard your extensive bio and experience there. I want to start with why wellness? What got you into the wellness industry?
Well, for me, I was always interested in the health and fitness industry from a young age. I started in martial arts. That really kicked it off into changing what I wanted to do from working with computers to working in fitness, in health and fitness. So for me, I started working in gyms and pretty much lived in gyms most of my adult life, working as fitness instructor, personal trainer, into management, into different positions, different companies. And I love the whole idea of being able to, like the exercise, the nutrition, changing your body, helping people as well with their goals. And I think the first half of my career was spent around the physical side of wellness, because I didn't know anything else. All I knew was nutrition and exercise. And that was a huge part of my journey. So my thought process was, whatever was going on in your life, it can be solved through nutrition and exercise. That was the key. It took me a while to realize that that's a very small part of the bigger picture. And it took me going through immense amount of my own suffering and pain, through killing myself in the gym, being extremely strict with how I ate, to the point where I'd sacrifice my social life, my relationships. I've literally just said, no, I can't go out because I can't control what I'm eating. So I have to sacrifice everything and just focus on my exercise and my nutrition. And that got so anal, and to the point where all I would do would be work, train, eat. That was literally it for probably close to a decade. And I would sometimes be in the gym twice a day, sometimes 6 to 7 times a week. And I would be kidding myself trying to get these goals of what I think someone working in the health and fitness industry should look like. They should train all the time. They should have a 6-pack. They should look like they train. They should be like cover model ready. And I killed myself getting there. And at the same time, working 16, 17 hours a day, I was placing so much stress on my body. I started to develop a lot of pain, a lot of exhaustion, a lot of fatigue. And I thought my way out of that was to train more. I need to eat better and train more. So I was like just doubling up on my efforts. I think, okay, I'm supposed to feel better by exercising. I'm supposed to feel better by eating well, and I'm not. I'm exhausted all the time. I'm angry all the time. I'm feeling like rubbish. So why is it not working? So what's my solution? Do more. And it took me to a point of experiencing chronic pain for me. So I had chronic pain in my back. That used to radiate up my spine, into my head, into the front of my eyes, and it would actually get blurry vision. So I got so bad to the point where I couldn't train as hard anymore. I couldn't work as effectively anymore. So I had to really cut back on a lot of things. I tried every physical fix under the sun, chiropractors, physios, medication, injections directly into my spine, all having a very short-term relief. And it took, I think it was probably about close to that 10-year mark. So I had chronic pain for 4 years out of those 10 years. And it was close to that time where I started to get fed up with being in pain. I started to get tired of being tired and fed up of being exhausted all the time. So I asked myself, there's got to be an easier way. Nothing's working. There's got to be something that I can do. And that's when I started to become more open to a different way of looking at things, a more holistic approach. I wasn't completely open to it. I still used to think like yoga, breath work, meditation was all very woo-woo and like pointless. But I was desperate. I was desperate to get rid of the pain. I was desperate to live a life that didn't feel so hard. And then that's when I started getting into more meditation. I didn't really get on with guided meditation first, so I found breath work. I think for me that was because it was more physical. I connected with it more. And then I started doing breath work and getting more involved in that. And what I started to realize that my problem wasn't a physical issue. The pain I was experiencing, the exhaustion I was experiencing wasn't a physical problem. It's all related back to, well, now I know this, but back then I didn't. It was about a lot of stored emotional issues I wasn't dealing with at that time because I had no idea what emotions were. I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know how I was feeling, except for anger. That was my go-to emotion. I used to have the nickname of the Hulk by my employee, by people I used to work with, because I used to snap and every second anything would trigger me. And I used to love that identity. I used to really bring it to that. People call me the Hulk, angry person. Yeah, that's me. And I've bought right into that identity for years. And it was when I started to tap into breath work and start to really connect mind and body, I started to feel this shift. And the shift was I started to feel calmer. I started to feel more relaxed. I started to be able to understand how I was feeling. And I remember after doing, there's a specific breathing exercise, retention breathing, that I used to do. I used to combine that with some visualization work. And it was about 2 weeks of doing it every single day for 20 minutes a day that I stood up from one session and I just noticed something was different, but I didn't know what. It took me about a minute to realize that the chronic pain I was experiencing for 4 years had completely disappeared. And I literally I didn't even know what to do. I was just kind of moving and I was, I have no pain. I even went to the kitchen, told Charlotte, I said, my pain's gone. I've got no more pain. And that was the first kind of light bulb moment for me, was realizing that, okay, the be all and end all of health and wellness and fitness is not exercise and nutrition. There's more to it than that. And that's when I started digging more into the emotional, the mental side of wellness, and started to realize that wellness is an integrated system. It's like one doesn't work without the other. You can't have good mental health while having poor emotional or physical health, and vice versa. Everything is connected and influences each other. And that's why I kind of switched from being focused a lot on the physical aspect of nutrition and exercise into more the energetic side of wellness. Is being able to change our state, being able to release and get energy flowing again, to be able to balance our whole kind of holistic body from a mental, physical, emotional, and energetic standpoint. So for me, that's that connection going from health and fitness to wellness was that shift in myself of being able to actually heal myself from the pain I was experiencing for so many years, to realizing that, okay, there is a bigger picture here. There is more aspects to wellness than just exercise and nutrition.
I think you've unpacked a lot there, and that's really, really interesting, because actually it's such a relatable story, right? You're in a very alpha environment where it was all about how you looked, the strength, and maybe wellness was shunned upon, as is the case in a lot of companies still in the UAE and also in the UK, where you think wellness is something that's going to be a bit fluffy, and unpacking there that you almost found wellness through necessity, if I could say, that it was through the pain and necessity that you come across another option, and it turns out that it works. So that's an incredible story. It's a very relatable story for many as an origin story. Incredible. And this is the first time as well, just to say, that we've done 2 people on the podcast, right? So I'm very aware that for our listeners here, Jonathan's just spoken. Charlotte is also here. So whilst I'd love to unpack that further, let's go into Charlotte as well, and let's try and mix them together as a sort of a massive expertise.
Yeah, definitely. I'll give you a short version.
I don't think that exists.
Rather than the whole life story.
No, it's brilliant.
So yeah, to be honest, it's not too dissimilar to Jonathan's journey in terms of how we landed into wellness. But for me, so I was raised in quite a turbulent household, but I was always kind of finding a bit of an outlet through sport and through movement and things like that. And I remember going to an event in the UK. They have like the cancer research runs that happen like in the local park, and everybody comes together, they run a distance, and like there's just a really nice vibe. And I was fascinated by it. I'd never experienced that level of just emotion and pride and sense of awe over how just fitness can create such a positive ripple effect. And that really stuck with me, and that moved me immediately into the fitness industry. So since the age of 16, I've been working in this space and really understanding like what makes us tick as human beings. So obviously there was like the fitness side of things, and kind of went through being a trainer and all that side of things. And I worked my way up the ranks through kind of different management positions, different leadership positions, to the point of becoming like a national manager across the GCC, and leading over like 1,000 people is no small feat across 5 different countries. And it was something that on the journey to, and when I got to that position, it just got me to a point of absolute burnout. And it was at that point, I think, it really took me down the mental health route and the emotional well-being route. So I'd always been really interested in the psychology and performance and like mindset, and how do we get the best out of our people. But then there was this whole other avenue that I hadn't yet explored. And I think hitting that point of burnout to the point of rock bottom, like literally not seeing a future for myself, really struggling emotionally, relationships were taught, and it was just really, really dark experience. And a big part of that was essentially some of my past catching up with me. So I mentioned like a turbulent upbringing. I think we do ourselves a disservice when we don't actually pause at some point in our life and be reflective of how our conditioning affects the way we show up today. And I truly believe that if we can really get to the root cause of a lot of the issues that we're facing, yes, we need to pay attention to things like self-care. Yes, we need to pay attention to our environments, but we need to look at what's going on in our internal environment and really, really explore what's going on, so that when we are in those more challenging, high pressure situations, whether it be in work or in personal life or somewhere else, we don't crash as hard. And I feel like I crashed hard and then some, with everything kind of coming to the surface. And that was it for me. I was down the rabbit hole, learning anything and everything I could find, working with some of the best teachers in this field. And that was it, wasn't it, for me? It was just a case of, right, I'm running with this. So I ended up leaving that kind of corporate world. And then that's kind of where our journey began together, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It started to kind of marry our both our skill sets together to create what we're doing now. Just thinking, why try to kind of become a jack of all trades and just take both of our expertise, put them together, and create that holistic approach.
Wow, I mean, I'm gobsmacked. What an answer to that first question of why wellness. You don't often get an answer where it's like, we've both been to the absolute worst place you can be, and then come through it and find a solution. And now we're implementing that solution to solve that pain, in a country that really needs it. That's probably, I think it's the best answer I've had to that question out of all the episodes you've had. It's amazing. So I want to go into, there you go, you got the accolade straight away. What a start. I want to go into, I want to really touch on the catalyst, right, for people suffering at the moment. So, you've both been to that place where there was no other option. It was almost necessity. You were like, how can I help myself out of this? How do you think people should get to that good place now by being proactive? How do they understand their well-being? What's the first thing they can start to do to be like, right, I need to put some measures in place before I go to burnout or worse?
So this is one of the reasons why we do what we do, and we specialize in stress relief, right? Is because one of the things that we'd seen out of all of our years is that stress is the one thing that everybody has in common, but it's also the one thing that will either push you in a good way, in a healthy way, or in an unhealthy way. So if we can start paying attention to our stressors and the things that actually really do trigger us or throw us out of our rhythm, then we can immediately start to prevent long-term stress, like day-to-day stress becoming long-term stress. Right. So we talk about something called stress stacking, which is where we literally stack up stress, like one stressful thing after another, and we just keep it and basically store that energy in all those stressful situations. We store it in our body, in our minds, and it then informs the way we behave in other areas of our lives. And the thing is, if we don't address that compounded stress, it becomes distress. And if we then don't take care of that distress, it then becomes a mental health issue. So if we can catch it when we start to notice these things, then we can actually start to do something about it sooner rather than later. So we do what we do so that people don't have to get to that point. That's the exact reason why we actually launched the wellness theory, was because we want to help people, and we do give people the tools that we wish we'd had in those earlier days, so they can not go down that rabbit hole.
That's amazing. So what's one of the things that someone could look out for, in a job or their life in general, that says, I'm starting to get stressed? Some of us can feel stressed. Some people can tell us that you're getting a bit stressed, but what if you don't have those nets to help you? What is something that you could be like, right, this is getting bad now?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that we can all learn to do is become more aware of what's triggering us, where our stresses are coming from, and how we're feeling. For me, that was the same for a lot of our clients. It's the same as that level of awareness is like half the battle, just knowing what's happening and understanding what's happening. So becoming aware of how you feel, like stress shows up differently for everyone. It could be sweaty palms, it could be heart rate, it could be the inability to be able to actually speak, get your words out. It could be paralysis, where you literally you can't do anything, and to the point where you could go to the other end of snapping at loved ones or colleagues at work. There's loads of different triggers to look out for, but it comes in a very unresourceful way. So especially in a work setting, for example, a very common thing to look out for is if you're getting triggered by certain people, colleagues, or customers, or whatever your industry is, and you're not really sure why. Someone talks to you, and instantly you feel this anger rising, your body temperature rising, and you're not really sure, understand why. That's a clear sign that you're under stress. And there's something deeper going on inside of why that's affecting you. And that's something to become aware of as well, because we don't understand it a lot of the time, and we just think that it's the other person that's the problem, and that's what we stick with. That's the story we tell ourselves, because we don't actually know what we're feeling and why.
On that awareness point, so one of the methodologies that we use with our clients and with anyone that comes to work with us is we have something called the stress awareness pyramid. If you can imagine the pyramid, and the base of the pyramid is what we call the root level, the center is called the health level, and the tip is our life level. And the life level is essentially all of our kind of life areas, right? So our work, our relationships, our finances, our fitness, all of those different areas of life. Then that middle level is like lifestyle health, right? It's our nutrition, it's our breathing, it's our quality of thinking, and a few other factors in the mix there, which we can dive into any of these if you want to. And then we have that root level, which is more that past conditioning that I referred to earlier. And when people are experiencing something in one of those life areas, so let's say let's say work, for example, they will be experiencing that at the very tip of the iceberg. And then we want to backtrack to that and ask, like Jonathan said, why? Is it because I didn't sleep well? Is it because I'm jet lagged? Is it because I haven't eaten today? Right? Is it because actually I'm holding on to some emotion from a conversation that I had with my partner last night, and now I'm taking out on this person at work? That would be addressing it at that health level, make you question it. But then you can go another layer deeper and be like, okay, what is happening within me that could be linked to something deeper into my subconscious that could be triggering me at this point? So that stress awareness pyramid really acts as a bit of a map for people to be able to be like, okay, this is where I'm feeling it, this is what could be affecting it, what's true for me, essentially.
I mean, you literally both touched on points that resonate massively with me, right? So I'm quite a very laid back, chilled out person. I don't easily get stressed or upset. But if I'm tired, or you touched on jet lag there, I was speaking before we started recording, I've been quite jet lagged this week. I can feel that stress. And for me, it always builds up in frustration, where you feel inside you, be like, I'm so frustrated if someone's talking to you and they're not doing what you say, or they don't understand what you're talking about. I just feel myself getting frustrated. I can always stop it before I snap, but it always feels, that warm feeling where you know what's happening. And I think, from speaking to you over the last few months, that awareness is massive. And then going back, like you say, to the triggers or what it actually came from. And I was getting stressed this week, and I was saying to myself, what's happened? And I realized I'm jet lagged. I'm like 5 or 6 hours behind. I'm therefore not eating. I'm training in the gym, but I probably shouldn't be, because it's too much. I've had a busy week last week. And it's building that pyramid of understanding, which is so important. And I'd love to touch on how should we be spending a time on our awareness daily? What are your tips there? Should we be constantly thinking about how our body and our mind is coping? You sort of a dip test in the oil every day of our minds, or should it be less often than that to avoid the stress of being like, oh, I'm getting a bit stressed? What's your advice around that?
I'll let you share your thoughts first.
You
know where I'm going to go with it. That's why.
Well, everyone's different. I think that's the key. There's no one set way, no generic thing for people to do this and you're just gonna change your life type of thing. You've got to find what works for you. Like for me, I literally started with probably just less than 5 minutes a day of just trying to sit in stillness and be with myself, which was extremely difficult. At the start, I really struggled in terms of, because my mind would go off in a million different directions with work, with whatever's going on, and I struggled just to be still and kind of focus on and just listen to what my body was telling me. Over time, that developed where I could do it for half an hour and I could sit and understand how I was feeling, what I was feeling. But it took time, it took practice. Whereas I know some people can't even sit down for 2 seconds. So they need another way of doing it. They might need to write things down. They might speak to someone. There's different ways of doing it. But for me, I always say, if you're able to sit with yourself, even just for a couple of minutes in silence, that's like one of the hardest things to do nowadays with how busy everybody is and how kind of that lack of attention span. Is if we can just do it for a couple of minutes per day to start practicing with, it really helps to bring our focus back into ourselves and stop placing our focus out into the external.
I would say I would definitely agree with what Jonathan said there. It's like different strokes for different folks, right? So you're going to find things that resonate and things that don't. I am a massive advocate for journaling on a daily basis. It's something that's been extremely powerful for me, and it's one of, I would say, probably like the highest return on efforts for the clients and the people that we've worked with, where they see the biggest differences and their progress because they are actually looking at it every day. And I mentioned earlier something like stress stacking, where we're literally collecting those rocks of stress and those emotions every single day. If we're not pausing to discharge that emotion, or at least understand it and see what role that's playing in our lives, it will add up. And it'll add up to the point of chronic stress in Jonathan's example, burnout in my example. And it's something that I think the more frequently you can check in, the better. So just having a simple stressometer in every day of, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed were you? Or just ask yourself, what were my dominant emotions today? And scaling them on a scale of 1 to 10 can help you to start identifying patterns. And that's where you can then start to create real lasting change, because you get to actually go into the detail.
Journaling is not something that I've tried. I know I should do it. I will start it. I can see the benefits. My fiance has been doing it for 2 or 3 years, and it has that secondary benefit of the way that she does it. It's sort of stacked on top of each other. So you've got the same thought from the day last year and the year before. So it almost gives you that secondary benefit of how much you're doing in your life, where you were a year ago, what those problems are that now don't affect you at all. And so I can see how you're talking about it to go forward and understand yourself, but also having that retrospect to look back and grow from where you've been. I think, it's something that I will start. I'll start today. It's brilliant. I'll start today. And the other, I wanted to touch as well on what you said, Jonathan, about sitting with yourself. Again, meditation, I've barely started it. Like 5 minutes a day is a lot. And the way I started it really was through trying to stop technology. So when you go out for a dinner with someone or coffee or whatever, when they go to the toilet inevitably, or they go and order, don't pick your phone up. Just try and sit with yourself. And I think that is, well, my next question is around technology. How do you think technology has affected people's wellness in general, and also their attention span to be able to, I can see you're both rolling your eyes here. This is a big one.
It's a great question, because there are pros and cons when you're talking about this type of thing, because technology is only going to get bigger. It's not going anywhere. And it can assist in your wellness journey massively, but it can also be a huge detriment if you're not aware of why you're using it and what you're using it for. So it's like, well, like the average attention span of people has dropped dramatically over the last few decades.
It's officially less than a goldfish.
Yeah, it's this is why you look on most social media platforms, and videos people are putting out like 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, because attention span is so low. We're constantly just scrolling through stuff because just trying to find that little dopamine hit that we're looking for. Like me, I know when I'm tired, I'm hungry or something, and I don't have the brain power in that moment to do anything resourceful. I'll go on Instagram and I'll look at videos of dogs and puppies.
If you look at his explore profile, it's
full of animals. Yeah, because it gives me that instant dopamine hit. It's like, I feel better now. But it's one of those things where there's so much amazing content out there to help you grow as an individual, or as a couple, or as a business. But you need to be aware of why you're using it, for what you're using it for, and when you're using it as well.
We need to be the gatekeeper, right? We have to be the gatekeeper in our lives, full stop, whether it be technology, and obviously we're thinking predominantly with social media, right? That obviously is having a massive effect on mental health and our ability to connect, which obviously really makes stress become even bigger. Self-esteem is dropping. Our ability to actually be able to connect with other people is really suffering, and that's one of our core foundational needs. So that's having a massive effect on us as human beings, undeniably so. And the piece around like technology in general, away from social media, just technology, like you can use it to amplify your well-being drastically. We use so many things in our lifestyle to help us to optimize our well-being. And like, for example, one of the things is like the Oura ring, which I'm wearing now. I probably never paid as much attention to my sleep until I got the Oura ring, because I actually love looking at the data. I actually love seeing what the patterns are, and I've really enjoyed that. So I've optimized my sleep just through looking at the data, and I wasn't really a data-driven person at all. And it's really added another element to how I look after myself, and that's just sleep as one of the factors. There's so many ways you can leverage technology.
For those who don't know, including me, what's an Oura ring?
Good question. So an Oura ring is basically a ring that tracks your sleep. So it tracks your sleep, it will track your HRV, which is your heart rate variability. That is really, really good to monitor if you're somebody that gets very stressed, because you can start to see patterns. You can see perhaps what's triggering your nervous system to go out of whack. It also tracks your steps and activity levels as well. And I think there's probably some more features on there that
the newer models
have, but it's great.
It's an app kind of thing, like it's like a Whoop band kind of, or a Garmin, but on a ring.
Exactly.
They're one of the first ones out, and there's a lot more companies now doing the same thing, because they're seeing the importance of data-driven wellness, of being able to see what's working, what's not, and to see that in black and white, that improvement.
One of the great things about Oura, and one of the things I've enjoyed, is it gives you a readiness score every day. And I'm pretty sure other tech things do the same thing. I think even Fitbit does that now too. But it will tell you, take it easy today. Based on how you slept last night and your activity levels, have a rest. And I am somebody that needs to be told to have a rest, because I will go. So for me to see that, it's almost like permission to be like, okay, I can do something lighter today, or I can even have a day off. Like, wow, what a treat. And it's really helped to like flip my mindset around certain things. And again, same for clients, and the HRV piece on that is like, it's one of the best ways to track stress. So when clients come and work with us, they end up with some kind of device, if it's relevant for that person, where we can see real time the data of what they're experiencing, so that we can obviously help them accordingly, depending on where they are in that stress pyramid.
Wow, that's incredible. That's a really good segue into how technology is actually benefiting us as well, right? I don't have that kind of thing. I use a Garmin watch, but it's more for my fitness. So it's the amount of steps I do a day, like if I do workouts, and then it does your sleep as well, but probably not to the same accuracy as what you're talking about there. To your point, Charlotte, I think I am quite data driven. Like, I like to use things like my fitness pal and look at my steps, and how hard was my heart working during that jog or whatever. And that's what drives me, but that's because it's very tangible, isn't it? So I'm going to use that as a segue into where you got a lot of your experience from. I know you've traveled a lot, you've studied a lot of different wellness arts from different countries. Where is somewhere you've been that's somewhere where you've picked up some of the best wellness tips and tricks. Try saying that, tips and tricks. That was difficult. Where they haven't got as much technology, because I guess those are the kind of places where actually wellness is doing the best in some regards.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it's come from lots of different countries and different places, and we've gone out and found it in these random places rather than like us just coming across it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's so many. If you go to the countries where wellness tech is like growing massively, you've got the other side of the coin as well, where the reason it's growing so massively is because the amount of issues population is facing with obesity, with sleep issues, stress, depression. So the companies are trying to solve that problem from a tech issue. But like we mentioned earlier, one of the key things to think about when we come back to that stress pyramid is the root of why you're stressed in the first place, why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. Tech can help you understand to a certain point, can help. Think of tech basically like supplements. If you're living off a diet of processed food, sugars, and rubbish, and you're training in the gym and you're taking supplements, you're pretty much throwing money down the drain. But if you've got a healthy, balanced diet and you're adding supplements on top, it gives you that extra like 1%. It gives you an extra boost. And that's pretty much what tech does, is it helps you to understand what's going on. But if you want to leverage it to really optimize your wellness, you need to actually take that data and you need to then put the practices in to help improve your wellness, because wearing tech alone is not going to improve your wellness. It gives you data, it helps you understand, but you have to take the action to put those steps in place to actually improve your wellness. So if you're wearing an Aura ring and you know that my sleep's being affected, on my sleep times all over the place, I'm waking up groggy, I'm feeling brain foggy, I feel like rubbish, and you've got that data showing that it's because you're not sleeping at consistent times every night. And if you're then not thinking, okay, I need to now put some sort of routine in where I go to bed at the same time every night, give or take 30 minutes, then you're pretty much just throwing money down the drain again, because you've got the data, but you're not doing anything. You're not taking action. And it's so important to combine those two, because data without action or a plan in place is pointless. It's just great looking at something going, great, okay, I know what's going on now, but I'm going to carry on doing what I've been doing.
And I think I love what you just said there about it being like a supplement to our lives, because it's so easy for us to lose the fact that we actually are our own greatest technology, and we actually can all check in with ourselves. We don't need a ring to tell us how we slept. We don't need something to tell us how many steps we did that day. Not really, we know if we feel energized, we know if we feel healthy. So it's really important to take the data and the technology as a supplement, remembering that you are like the alpha tech in your life.
Yeah, I love that. I think the supplements to your life is brilliant. Is there someone that you've been in the world that you think, regardless of tech, put that to one side, somewhere where they probably don't have that, but, where you've seen some wellness activities or mantras that you think we can really bring this and help people in the Western world, for example, using these methodologies? Is that something that comes to mind, like a country or a place or a town that you've been to?
I think it's if you look at Southeast Asia as a whole, they've got it basically when it comes to that, because it comes back to basics. Like, we lived in Thailand for 2 years. We lived on the beach. Like, our tech was limited to a phone and a laptop. Every day we were out on the beach, we were grounding in nature. Literally, we were connecting with nature. We were basically feeling the sun, the air, fresh air, eating fresh foods that were caught locally, like in the city, just out of our front door. And now when we're back in Abu Dhabi, because we live 9 floors up in an apartment building, we have to utilize tech even more to be able to keep that connection. So we use stuff like grounding mats, air purifiers, obviously the Aura rings, mineralized water, stuff like to make sure that we're still getting those benefits that aren't readily available to us as we had in Thailand. So the Southeast Asia really has that down when it comes to that simpler, more stress-free way of living, when it's all about bringing everything back to basics. It's connecting with nature at every opportunity, is feeding your body with natural, wholesome, nutritious food.
And connecting to each other.
Yeah.
That's a massive piece that I think we're losing touch on in other parts of the world is, you know, in Thailand, it was so easy. You would get to know pretty much everyone pretty much straight away because everybody's just so open and it's just a different kind of lifestyle. But coming back to Abu Dhabi, like Jonathan said, you know, we're 9 floors up, everyone's living in their little box within this building, and it's like you barely get a hello unless you're the person that's initiating. And it's really interesting to see that dynamic as well. So I think not only coming back to nature itself, but remembering we are nature and we can connect with each other as well, I think is a massive piece of wellness that's missing in some of the cities, let's say.
I think that's an amazing piece to touch on, because I completely agree. A lot of it is the educational piece, isn't it? And actually thinking about it and coming across it first and then being proactive. And you touched on it really nicely there, because my next thing I want to talk about really was the UAE. You know, you're doing a lot of work in the UAE. You know, you're well known for the wellness side. What do you think the state of wellness in the UAE is in general?
Well, one of the latest statistics that came out, literally 2022, was that 98% of people in the UAE are experiencing at least one symptom of burnout. So that, I think, says a lot for how we're doing, right? Because essentially burnout happens when we lose sight of basic wellness scope of practice, right? And I think we're seeing it, right? I'm so happy to see it's coming more to the forefront of the conversation, but how it's changed. So we first came to the UAE in 2013, and the level of awareness of what is healthy and what is not has changed drastically. I remember we went to a company in Abu Dhabi, obviously I won't share who, and we had about 100 people in the room, and it was like more of a fitness and nutrition kind of day. So it's like, okay, let's talk to these guys about some nutrition. I'm like, right, hands up if you think you've got the healthiest diet in the room, right? So all of a sudden everyone's like, he's got the best nutrition, pointing at the CEO of the company. And the CEO proudly puts his hand up, right? And I'm like, okay, this is going to be good. What a great example. Everybody clearly thinks he's like the healthiest guy in the room. And then I was like, okay, give us an example. What's a typical day for you? And it was shocking. So he skipped breakfast. This was before anyone really knew about intermittent fasting and was doing it consciously. So skip breakfast, coffee only. It was a Subway for lunch, and then it was like a McDonald's for dinner, no, KFC for dinner. And I was like, okay. And I'd only been in the country for about 3 or 4 weeks, I believe, at that time. And I was just like, okay, we've got some work to do. But fortunately, we're not at that level anymore. You know, this is now 10 years later. So the consciousness and the awareness around well-being is definitely improved. But I think there's a lot more pressure. And obviously the pandemic has played a massive role in it as well. So I think we're about to see a massive spike in wellness and well-being, I believe. But it's not looking good at the moment, to be honest.
Still very new.
Yeah, it does feel quite new. We've done some work in the last couple of months and surveyed hundreds and hundreds of people in Dubai, and 71% said they were uninspired by the place and didn't feel well here in terms of, you know, themselves, not necessarily physically unwell. But that to me is incredible, because this is a place I think you come to because it's inspiring, and the lifestyle you think you can have a better journey, and that kind of figure is massive. And then to move on from that, we've obviously on our work we speak to a lot of HR, and we've had conversations with HR professionals in big companies who have said, we don't want anything to do with, you know, the environment specifically helping with wellness, or we're not interested in wellness, or there's no budget for wellness in our company. And it's one of those things that I just can't quite believe, and I think you're completely right in that it's going to change very drastically soon. There's a lot of 5-year goals and people behind it. Do you think, from your experience, that the UAE is far behind the UK, or do you think the UK is not as high up there in terms of wellness as people think?
No, I think it's mirrored quite evenly, I think. And to be honest, I think the wonderful thing about the UAE is we like it to be this shiny, wonderful, attractive place to come. So therefore, sometimes the data gets skewed and things like that, unless you're putting your own data. Whereas the UAE, I think, comes up against slightly different challenges. But I think if we really took all of that into account, it would land in a similar ballpark.
Absolutely. It's like, I think the UK has had more access and education around wellness for a longer time, which then begs the question is, why are we still in the position that they're in? Whereas UAE is still relatively new as a country, but also what's happening in the country. Like when we were here, basically there was no such thing as breathwork sessions, ice baths, cold therapy, stuff like that. It was very hard to find. There was like 1 or 2 retreats here and there, which are mainly yoga retreats. But now coming back, like it's blowing up. Like in Dubai alone, there's probably about 5 or 6 places around Dubai where you can do breathwork ice bath sessions. There's like retreats happening every other weekend. So it is getting bigger, but the education still needs to be there, because we are in a desert effectively, and if you're in a city, you're in a concrete jungle as well. So nature, when it comes to really connecting with that, is not as convenient to be in as if you're in the UK or if you're in Thailand or somewhere else. So you really do have to be conscious and educated to know how can you implement wellness practices effectively somewhere like here. And tech is a big part of that, compared to anywhere else. So it's that education role as well, which is so important in the UAE, to make sure that grows rapidly.
That's a really interesting perspective, right? Because we're basically saying that education is great in the UK, but action not so much. And then here is the opposite, which is so interesting, because that correlates as well to when we went back to the UK before we went to Thailand. We spent a bit of time there thanks to lockdowns and whatnot, and we struggled to find really healthy places to eat out. And here you can find really healthy foods pretty much everywhere. But in the UK, it was shockingly hard.
It was extremely, like, unless you were in central London, finding any good healthy cafes, a healthy breakfast was impossible. It was so hard. It was like you had a Greasy Spoon cafe down the road, or a pub, and that was the main thing. Is like it's the education is there, the resources are there, but the action is not. And it's just very funny seeing those two kind of opposites there. And the UAE is like, you can go to any cafe, any coffee shop, and you'll find good healthy alternatives for anything, as well as very, very unhealthy alternatives as well. But it's like you're not stuck in, I've got a healthy option, or an unhealthy option, and a slightly less unhealthy option.
I completely agree. And actually, to that point, I don't know what your opinion is on this, but I don't think that wellness here is extortionately expensive. Whereas in other places in the world, wellness is sort of seen, healthy diet, healthy ice baths, whatever it is. It's almost seen as like a luxury. You should pay more for this. Whereas UAE is like, you can pay the same, if not a bit less, because it's healthy. It's not quite. Do you know what I mean? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's just like, but everything then is expensive in the UAE.
Yeah, true.
There you go.
There's a bit more of a higher end of everything, really. But
it's supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
Because it's more heavily available here, people can obviously charge less for it. Whereas in the UK, it is something that isn't as popular, so they can charge more.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I don't know why I said it. I want to touch on teams, really, because I know you both got backgrounds in teams. So, Charlotte, obviously leading over 1,000 people, that's incredible. And I know the work now you're doing, you're touching on the corporate side of things and these big high performance teams. What is something that a middle manager or someone slightly senior can look at in their team and implement as a sort of a daily habit? You've touched on a few things earlier, like meditation and grounding that they can do in their own time. But what is something that someone could do in an office, or if they're a leader, to their team, to try and catch things before it gets too far?
Great question. So essentially what we're doing is we're bringing corporate wellness and corporate well-being together. So the first thing a leader or a manager needs to understand is they're actually two different things, right? So corporate wellness is the health of the individual, and corporate well-being is the health of the business in relation to the individual. So they have to start to recognize that actually the onus isn't just on one person, it's a shared responsibility to create systemic and organizational changes. So For a manager that's working with their team on a daily basis, to answer your question, I think the most powerful thing they can do outside of the organizational changes that perhaps need to happen is to check in with their staff, give them a safe space where they are able to actually verbalize what they're experiencing and how they're feeling, free from judgment. So it's compassionate leadership, essentially. And it's really just having moments to check in and get to know the person as a human being. And I don't mean necessarily like, you know, what's your favorite food, as in, how are you today? How's your family? And really actually care about the answer. How are you feeling about your workload right now? You know, and really sharing and creating a space where people can share confidently, I think would immediately create a ripple effect and a sense of psychological safety within a work environment.
That was the big game changer for me as a manager, fitness manager, and then going into general manager. I obviously my management style was militant, very military, very my way or the highway,
to say the least.
Yeah, it's basically, yeah, people were scared to work with me. So I got to a point where I knew, okay, I was getting results, but it was very, very hard. And then when I started to change the way I approached management and started to actually use that approach of just listening to people, asking them questions, things changed so quickly. Like staff felt more comfortable. They felt easier talking to me. They felt easier sharing their problems, and they felt, and based off of that, they were more productive. They felt more relaxed at work and being able to actually do more. And if they felt like they couldn't do their job, and or they made a mistake, they didn't feel like I was going to potentially take them out the back and shoot them if for a mistake, like they used to. So they found it easy to come and speak. I've done this, has happened. I made this mistake, and just knowing that they're not going to get berated or they're not going to get like just pulled down for it as well. And they're going to have support from their line managers, and I think that changed things so much in the culture and the dynamic of the team.
And you've got better results.
And got much better results.
Like financially, you've got 200% of your like KPIs.
Yeah, I was doing numbers that clubs in Dubai with double the amount of staff and 3 times the amount of members we're doing. We were doing revenue numbers on that scale. And obviously head office going, "Oh, what are you doing?" It's like just being human, like listening to staff and helping them feel supported. I think that was one of the biggest feedback from that is that most employees don't feel supported by management, and when they do, they work harder because they know that you've got their back.
I completely agree, and I think there's so much power as a manager in compassion and empathy. Whenever I've managed people or a team, it's like you say, creating that baseline where you're talking to them every day. And it's not a check-in as it sounds, you know, it's not a sit-down meeting every day to say, you know, are you okay? Is your mum okay? It's just having those check-ins when they're having coffee and when they're coming in, just showing an interest in people that then gives so much to them that is intangible, but you then also learn about them, and you know then if they're off a bit, or if they're too stressed or something's going wrong at home. And I love that it's creating that baseline. And you also touched on the fact there that, you know, there is a monetary benefit to businesses looking after their staff. You know, staff attrition in Dubai alone is 5 or 6% higher than anywhere else in the world. People leave their jobs much quicker here, and they look to leave their jobs. I think it's 56% of people look to leave their jobs every year in the UAE. They want to move jobs. So there is a monetary benefit. And I almost hate to talk about it because I don't think that's the main driving factor. I think touching again on compassion and wanting to look after your staff as a main, one of your core pillars of the business and a main journey is something that we should be doing anyway to sort of drive the whole country or business, whatever it is, forward. And I think that's, you know, where you guys are helping, right? You're seeing the bigger picture. It's not just about the money. It's about the whole thing of being a human being and trying to look after people.
Yeah, and it is like you said there, it's about zooming out and looking from a macro perspective, right? To be able to actually hone in on the issues that are at hand and then really integrate the most important changes first for that organization. It's interesting what you said there is earlier on when you mentioned there were certain companies or certain people you've spoken to, they're just not interested. I think those kind of organizations, I think they're going to struggle in the future. The future of work has changed drastically, and we have to start waking up to that, I think. So, I mean, It's a tricky one because there's obviously like generational differences and the way obviously in which people like to lead that are obviously playing a factor as well, but also things like technology, the skill sets that people have now. There's so much more opportunity. People can earn more money working for themselves than they can working for a company. So to work for a company is going to have to be very, very attractive. And well-being is obviously one of the key factors that individuals are looking for because they care about their own wellness.
And obviously the younger generations now, it's one of the top things, as you say, that they're looking for. It's not necessarily money anymore. Quiet quitting was a massive thing last year because people were saying that they're not being treated as a person, regardless of what they're being paid. They want more than that. They want to feel relevant. I think relevancy is a massive thing. I want to touch on you guys and how you set your environment up for wellness. So we're very heavily into how an environment can increase your performance, whether it's through wellness or through whatever you're doing. How do you guys set up your living or your working environment to benefit your wellness or your well-being?
Priority number one, sleep.
Yeah.
So no technology in the bedroom, no phones, no laptop, no TVs, nothing. The only technology we have in the bedroom is an air purifier. And that's just to keep the air clean, obviously filter out any pathogens, anything that could be potentially, that could harm our obviously sleep cycles. We also have grounding sheets as well because we live in a building surrounded by tons of Wi-Fi and signals that could, again, potentially harmful to the body. We use grounding sheets to sleep on that help us to ground and bring down any harmful EMFs as well. So, and obviously trying to keep everything blacked out in the room. Completely blackout, no light, limited noise. So sleep is priority number one for us because without that, everything suffers. Our mental emotion, our thoughts, our quality of thinking, our emotions, our body, how our body recovers, it all suffers if we don't get sleep. So that is the priority number one for us.
Yeah. There's other things like making sure that we have the things that we need that are convenient, like having a machine that remineralizes the water for us so we can literally just grab it and go and not have to worry about anything else from that standpoint. What else do we do? There's loads that we do.
We also have grounding mats as well. So if we are watching something or we're working on the computer, we stand on obviously feet on the grounding mat to make sure that we're always connected with the earth. We're grounding.
Yep. Blue light glasses
in the evenings blue light is to again help promote a healthier sleep pattern.
Plants,
yeah, lots of plants
to purify the air, but also to connect with nature. What else do we do? So there's one thing that I do which really helps, and it's not necessarily an environment thing, but it is synchronizing my infradian rhythm, which is basically the female 28-day cycle, with my lifestyle, which is really important to understand that actually there are 4 phases to a woman's 28-day cycle, not just menstruation, which everybody's aware of, and ovulation when you're trying for a baby. Essentially, they're the 2 most common. Actually, as we move through those 4 phases, it affects our ability to be productive in certain ways. It affects our energy levels. It affects how we digest certain foods and what it is we actually need on a hormonal level as well. It affects like the way that we train and the way that we move our bodies and the way we look after our fitness as well. That plays a massive part, and that's a real powerful game changer for anybody that wants, any woman especially, obviously, that wants to improve their own wellness. But also there's so many benefits to that in terms of self-esteem, health benefits. There's just too many to mention.
It's so cool, and it's quite inspiring that you guys have learned this much stuff and you've implemented off the back of these pains, because I don't know why someone wouldn't want to do this. Like, once you've learned about it, you've got education, I don't know why you wouldn't want to benefit yourself. Like, if you haven't got yourself and some purpose and everything else, almost what's the point? This is such a powerful message, and it always makes me think back to the Second World War and sort of 50s and 60s. After the war, people didn't realize how bad for you cigarettes were and smoking. It's only now where we're like, we shouldn't smoke. It's probably not a good thing. I think New Zealand have even said you can't buy a cigarette if you're under 18 now. You'll never be able to buy one. And it's the same with so many things that you're talking about, like the lack of grounding, or we don't know what the detriment of blue light is yet because we haven't had it long enough. And I don't think it's fair to say, we're being scared of these things. I think it's just good to understand the benefits in our body. And some of it is obviously science backed, most of it's science backed. And if not, you can at least feel the benefits, right? And I think it's something that we should all do. I think most people want to do. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I think I want to pick up on what you said there is not everything that is currently we're using has got a lot of science to back it up. And I think it's so key for people to realize that just because something isn't backed by science doesn't mean it doesn't work. Because everything that we know works eventually is brand new and no one knew what it was and how it worked and if it worked. So it comes back to trusting your body, trusting your own intuition, trusting your own awareness of how you feel. Like whether or not it's science backed doesn't matter. It's how you feel. Does it work for you? And I think that's where it comes key as well, is understanding that yes, you can try different things, but you need to build that connection with yourself, that level of awareness where you can then figure out, okay, what I've been doing this for 2 weeks now. How am I feeling? Is it working for me? Is it not? If it's not, try something different. Okay, don't just rely on, oh, I've got this. Someone told me to do this. Let's check on Google. How many science documents are there to back this up? None. I'm not going to even try it.
And that's what we've always done. Is we try it for ourselves. Before we give it to anybody, if we've used it for ourselves, we'll obviously tell them our experiences. But otherwise, we give them the autonomy to make their own choice based on how they feel. I'll remember when we first got blue light glasses. So we have blue blockers. Some are 100% blue blocking, and some of them are 80%. They're using based on the time of day. I remember putting the 100% ones on, the red ones, and I suddenly got sleepy, literally within 10 minutes. I'm like, these magic glasses, they're amazing. Like, these are magic. And was that a placebo? Probably. I don't know. But what I can tell you now, after using them for years, is that I can see the data. I can see the data. I can see in my body. I can see the benefits. And there's still a lot of, people out doing a lot of research on it. But you have to go, like Jonathan said, and trust yourself, which is why we have to have a daily check-in and why we have to observe what is going on and just start to take maybe a little bit more responsibility than what we have been in the past.
I think responsibility is a great point, and I think it's actually a good point to raise about discipline, because you can't do this once a week and it's going to make a difference. You've got to look at it and understand yourself. And it makes you think back to a couple of years ago. Antonio and I were training for a CrossFit competition, and we decided to get a nutritionist and try and help ourselves feel or perform better. And we did a 12-week cycle where he helped us with sleep and food, and the training was slightly different. And I've never felt so good in myself and so fit and so healthy and so happy than in that, or towards the end of that 12-week cycle, where you've got that discipline to say, I'm paying for this, so I'm going to do it every day. And I think that even helps, having a bit of skin in the game and saying, I'm taking responsibility. I'm putting some money down on the table because I believe in this. And basically what I'm saying is the compounding effect is so important, of just trusting something, learning from it, making changes, but trusting it for long enough that you can see the benefits. I think that's super powerful. I want to touch on some quick fire thoughts, which I have not really prepped you for. But the first one is, and you can do the same one or you can different ones, is a book recommendation, if you will.
One each.
Please.
Okay, so for me, it's called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker.
Oh, I love
think, anyone, I think that's the #1 book anyone should read if you're looking to optimize your health. Start with your sleep and read that book. That will change everything for you.
Yeah, for me, it would be the book In the Flow by Elisa Vitti. It's a must-read for any women, and it's a must-read for any man who works with women or wants to understand women better. It dives into that infradian rhythm that I mentioned earlier, which is a massive game changer when it comes to every area of life.
Great book for all husbands to read.
Yeah.
I know what's on the present list for me. Then I know I'll be reading next.
One thing interesting about that, just to add in, just because what else, is John actually read that book before me because of the clients that he was working with. And one of the things that with the book is you can download an app where you can actually see what's going on with your 28-day cycle. And the app will actually send John, if I track what's going on with me, it will send Jonathan an email and tell him what was going to be best, the best approach to deal with me during this phase.
Exactly. So no more clashes anymore.
Ultimate combination of tech and putting it all together. That's brilliant. What about the next one? Motivation. How do you stay motivated towards this mission?
For me, it's to stay close to the people that we serve. It's just staying in their world, still understanding, still listening, still being able to empathize, be able to just help them navigate it. That for me is the biggest thing.
Yeah, for me, in terms of keeping motivation, is just working with those types of people who want the help. I think that's the key, is not trying to change everyone, because not everyone's ready or willing, is really helping those who really want it, and then just getting to see how they change, and those light bulb moments that they come to and realize that they have and always have had the answers. They've just forgotten them, and our job is just to help them remember.
That's pretty cool, actually. So they already know what they should be doing. They just need some discipline, some guidance.
We all know what we need to do. We just forget. We need the guidance.
The next one I've got for you is, which I think will be quite easy for you, is how often do you take note or make changes or adapt your lifestyle and the things in it based on your needs?
Ooh, whenever there's an opportunity to optimize.
Really? Constantly?
Yeah. So everything that we just said about like the things that we do, is like we didn't just suddenly do them all overnight. It's just been like, oh, okay, let's try this. Let's try this. It's just built up over time. They're not things we have to consciously do now. We just set up our environment to actually support the things that we want to do. So if we find out there's something that can help us to be even better, then that's the time.
Okay, let's try and see what happens.
That's amazing. Because so many people don't do that. So many people just go through life and another year goes by and they go, I should have tried that. Or when I walk out of my room, I bump my knee, or I'm not sleeping very well, I should change my pillow, and they never do it. And it's so annoying to see, isn't it? That it's just a bit of responsibility, like you said. I think that's a really good takeaway from this. It's responsibility for yourself. The last sort of quick one here is: have you got a quote that inspires you?
You want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first then. Okay, so my quote is: life is an echo. What you send out comes back. What you sow, you reap. What you give, you get. What you see in others exists in you. By Zig Ziglar.
Wow, I
love that
for a long time. That is brilliant.
Energy. What you're putting out is what you're getting back. If you're not living the life you want and you enjoy, you're putting out the wrong energy.
So true. I love that, man. I've not heard that before ever. That's incredible.
Zig Ziglar.
Zig Ziglar, yeah.
There you go. Big boost of here, Charlotte. Here you go.
I'm gonna read mine. I don't remember mine like John. It's on our wall over there, so I'm gonna read it. So it's a Cole Young quote, which is: your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens.
Wow, they're both incredible. They're quite deep, actually. You could ponder those quite well.
We do.
We do, yeah.
There you go. I could have guessed that. That's amazing. This is a good one. And you might answer them differently. You might want to mute each other. If you had a full free day, how would you spend it?
Oh, well, apart from the normal answer with my wife, obviously. Nice. I have to say that because she's right here. For me, full free day is on a beach. We're surrounded by dogs and coffee. That's pretty much it. That's all I need.
Freddie's going to join you.
Yeah, that's literally all. If I could get paid just to do that, I'd be sorted.
That big Instagram influencer career kicking off, Jonathan.
Exactly, yeah.
What about you, Charlotte?
For me, location's not so important. As long as there's some laughter, there's some connection, as long as I can eat my favourite foods and be of service in some way, shape or form, then I think that'd be a pretty cool free day.
Nice.
Pretty
two great things. That's amazing. Do you have one piece of advice or something that the listeners now can ponder based on what we've spoken about and all your knowledge? Is there something that people should be thinking about?
I'd bring it back to the stress awareness pyramid. and checking in as to where are you experiencing your stress? Are you experiencing it in day-to-day life and spinning plates, chasing your tail, trying to figure things out? Is there something going on in your lifestyle, like yourself, Freddie, where it's like just jet lag is perhaps triggering certain traits that maybe you're not really that fond of right now? Or is there something deeper going on? If we're struggling to maintain healthy lifestyle habits, it is a clear sign that there is something happening at that root level that needs our attention. So the sooner you do that, the better. Otherwise, you end up stacking up your stress, and we end up having these stress explosions in different areas of our lives. And then we kind of feel like we're going backwards and not moving forwards. And that in itself can really affect our mental health and our overall well-being.
That's a perfect takeaway. I think that's really, really cool. I think everyone listening will be able to take something from this that they'll implement very, very quickly. It's awesome. What's up next for you guys? How does 2023 shape out? What are you working on?
Oh, good question. So Jonathan's working on a passion project, aren't you, at the moment?
Yes, I am. So something I've always wanted to do, which is opening a luxury health facility from scratch. So I've had the opportunity to be brought on board to that project alongside what I'm doing here. So that's something I've been wanting to do since I've ever started in the industry. So I've finally got the opportunity to do that, which is awesome. It's a very different experience trying to do it from scratch, and when there's so many different ideas and different ways you can go. So it's good fun.
Yeah, we're also with Wellness Theory, we are bringing on a couple of more coaches as well to support us with the community and clients that we work with already. We've got some really exciting projects going on, obviously in the corporate wellbeing space. And yeah, we've also got our first retreat will be happening in October as well. So yeah, lots going on at the moment. It's very exciting times. So yeah, watch this space.
Yeah.
Is the retreat going to be in the UAE or is it a flyaway?
It is going to be in the UAE. Right now, our community are essentially deciding where that's going to be, whether that be Dubai, Al Ain, Abu Dhabi, or Oman or Ras Al Khaimah. So it'll probably be in one of those locations. It's a lifestyle reset retreat. So essentially that stress awareness pyramid that we just talked about, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the health area, the lifestyle health pillars, and we'll be helping busy professionals. This is going to be ladies only for the first one, who feel like they need to just hit pause on life right now and just realign and get things back on track.
It's amazing. And how can people find you? Where's the best place to find both you and the company if they want to follow your journey and what you're up to?
Well, there's loads of places where we have, but the easiest place is our website. It's thewellnesstheory.com. And everything's on there, all the information about us, what we do, how to reach out to us, all on that.
Yeah. If anybody wants to assess where they are on the stress awareness pyramid, they can go to our website and they will be able to complete a scorecard that will be able to highlight the key areas for them to focus on. They'll get a personalized report and they get access then to masterclasses that we host as well, different workshops that they can check into and really help them feel a lot healthier and well to hopefully have a more meaningful impact, not only on their immediate life, but on society around them.
Okay, that's amazing. Well, thank you both for coming on. It's been absolutely amazing, been very insightful, an absolute pleasure, and all the best for the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, Freddie.